Hi, everybody. We'll get started probably in about 1 minute. Just to have a lot of people joining in from the waiting room. So we'll get started in just a minute. All right, so welcome everybody to the second class of the Mindful Minutes webinar series. Dave, you there? You ready to? Perfect. So one quick announcement before we get started today. I am recording all the Mindful Minutes webinars, and I will be posting them on Absorb, and they will be available till the end of May. So if for some reason you cannot attend next week's class or week number 4, you can still tune in, see that video, and then get credit for the raffle ticket for that. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
Hello, nice to be back here in front of all these friendly little squares. I understand might be a few new people. So I thought what I'd do is go through a super quick review of what we talked about last night in the mindfulness of body. But I started off by talking about my grandmother, who when she saw that Dave was getting upset about something, she just simply asked me to count to 10 slowly. And what grandma was doing was she was taking my mind that was obviously upset, hooked by an emotion and an object of anger. And she took my mind and she just placed it on counting to 10. They didn't call that emotional intelligence back then. It was grandma just handling me. And but it was she knew that our minds are workable no matter what's going on. And they've known this for 2,500 years. So I also introduced to us a very 2,500-year-old practice called shamatha, which translated means peaceful abiding. And I talked about how eventually I found out that peaceful abiding was peacefully abiding with whatever came up in my mind or my experience. So if it basically just taught me how to trust my own mind and eventually make friends with it. I gave some brief instructions on the actual practice, which was take a nice posture, upright position. I didn't talk too much about posture, but it's basically if I sit in an upright position with my feet on the floor, or if I'm on a cushion with my legs crossed and it's upright, it's kind of a feeling of elegance would be a good word. Then my mind goes right to my practice. After years of sitting there quietly, it would go, knowing what I was up to, it would go to, which is very different. I have some people ask if you can meditate on your lying down, and I basically think that's a great way to go to sleep. But meditation, that's not meditating. Or if I'm in what I call the Netflix position, or something, if I'm slumped off to the side, just pushing my button from my TV like this, that is not going to be helpful for your mind. So posture is very important, and we talked about that, and the instructions were very simple. We placed it on the sensation, we placed our mind on the sensations of the body breathing. It's mindfulness of body. One person mentioned that they were, it was a very uncomfortable, little claustrophobic form. So it can be mindfulness of just the weight of your body. It can be mindful of the breeze hitting your cheeks. It can be mindful of the air going into the nostrils with a little cool touch, and then the exhale. Be mindful of the body, the chest rising and falling. And basically that's what you're placing your mind on. You're noticing all these things. And then what happens is that your mind takes off on you. And we're going to go over a little bit about that today. Probably the most important instruction I gave last week, and I can't remember whose dog we used, Cheryl, I think. I asked how many people have a dog, and I just can't remember. How many people do have a dog here? All right, I'm going to pick Lucy. Lucy, real quickly, the name of your dog, and how does your dog greet you when you come home?
I have two. I have Kilala and Hudson.
All right.
And when I get home, they both run over and they usually start tackling each other, trying to get into my arms.
All right. So it's happy chaos then.
Yes.
All right. If we could carry Lucy's dog's attitude into our meditation practice, it will go a lot better. Some people make meditation practice a goal or a project, and I'm going to get there and I'm going to meditate 20 minutes a day. And next thing you know, there's an aggression to your own practice that makes it hard to sit down. And why would you want to do that? But if every time you sit down and you notice your mind is taken off on this, that, or the other thing, and you smile and you whistle your mind back, and you're happy to see yourself, you're happy to come back to this moment, your practice will develop a sense of delight. That's still hard. It's not easy, but it would develop eventually a sense of delight. So I wanted to move on a little bit to the mindfulness of the mind, which is a very kind of difficult thing. I'm going to encourage everybody just to stay with the practice of mindfulness of your body and breath. And when you notice you're thinking, you take a deep breath, you greet yourself, you come back, and you just place yourself back. Eventually, what happens in this practice is you will start to notice the patterns of what your mind is up to, what it's thinking about. We could go on for a long time, but might be the second I sat on a meditation cushion, I was planning. My mind likes to plan. And so my habitual pattern was to plan the next day or plan to this or plan my next water feature, which was my career. And, so eventually when I was doing my practice, I noticed that there were certain things that it went to, and I became mindful of what my mind was up to. Mindfulness of mind is also a place where you start to see the general flavors of your mind, emotions, grumpy, happy, joy, sad. And you start to notice that every time we practice, it's a new game, but you can love what's going on in your own mind. You do not have to be afraid of anything that comes up. And so this practice is very important. It doesn't really matter what you're thinking. Those are just thoughts. But the practice of coming back and placing it one more time on the sensations of the body, breathing, is bringing you back into this moment as it is. It's not in the past or in the future. It's now, it's right now. So I thought what we do today is let's practice for 5 minutes. How many, show of hands, how many are in this 5 minute a day challenge? Oh, that's great. Okay. Has anybody gotten enlightened yet? Or, how are we doing on that? But I would love to hear, or maybe add in your chat room, some of the things that have come up for you. Or we can add questions. We won't have time to get to all of them, but what has happened with that 5 minutes? Go ahead and in your chat, throw in something. It was peaceful, irritating. It doesn't matter what happened, because we accept everything that goes on in our practice, but that's also the object. That's what happens we become very familiar with our own experience of being human. And when I first started, I mentioned, I think last week, that I got a little bit upset because I said, I thought meditation was supposed to help me. And, it was just a huge awareness of how many thoughts are going through my mind, just one after another. And what we're doing is finding that gap between the thoughts. We think very quickly. I always thought I could multitask, and I have found out that no, I just have a really fast switching mechanism. But when I sit, I'm basically creating that spot that can open up a little bit between the gap between the thoughts. And that's where we sit there and can relax a little bit with ourselves. It's wonderful that we have a mind that thinks, but it's also wonderful that we have techniques to be able to slow it down. So let's practice. I'm going to ring the gong. We won't go as long because we don't have a lot of time, but this will be your 5 minutes of practice. This certainly adds up to your awards, but enjoy yourself. I want you to sprinkle in a little sense of appreciation for who you are, that you would come in here and be curious enough to take a look at your own experience and your own mind and what's going on. So I'll ring the gong. There might be a little bit of guidance, but not a lot. I'm going to actually just let you guys be together with yourselves and me in this practice.
Hey, Dave, before we get going, I'm seeing a major theme coming up in the chat. And I was curious if maybe you can give us some advice for that before we go into this 5-minute practice.
Perfect.
And what I'm seeing come up a lot is my mind wanders. I have lots of thoughts. I tend to go to worry. Lots of, just lots of thoughts. How within this 5-minute practice, what are some tips you could give us to try to quiet those thoughts? Yeah, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, first, that's the thing that we discover when we meditate. We discover what our mind is up to, that it worries, it plans, it goes off, it takes off. I actually named my mind Floppy, picturing a golden lab that was the most misbehaved golden lab of all time. I could never get my mind to come back. Sometimes, can your dog sit and stay? And I just laugh. I said, I can't even get my mind to come back. And so what happened was the friendliness towards myself and all those things that are arising are what actually will help you settle it down. That acceptance of what's going on in your mind, whistling yourself back, placing it back on the breath, and interrupting that waterfall of thoughts and emotions that we all have. But it's that appreciation and a little bit of kindness toward yourself that will start to slow those down. If we had longer, it usually takes me even now 5 minutes to get everything just to start to slow down, just keep coming back, and pretty much Floppy relaxes a little bit, and then we can actually go into practice. So you can name your mind if you'd like, but just be friendly and see what happens, and then we'll go back to this after we come out of our practice. That help, Jesse? Okay. So good posture. The sound of the gong as it fades away is a way for us to be a signal that, okay, now it's time for me to practice. So place your mind on the sensations of the body breathing. When you take off on yourself, just smile. It's what happens. Exhale and just come back to the sensation of the body breathing. And I will bring us back with the gong in 5 minutes. So, how was that for people? Go ahead and do the chat thing, and Jesse will look and see if there's any questions and or comments that's coming up. I gotta laugh a little bit. I think, who was it? Oh, there was a Starbucks cup, and on one of that, Carmen, and I started laughing because Floppy was halfway to Starbucks getting a hot chai before I could stop him. You know, he was out of here. It was just delightful watching me, have some. Thank you. So, yeah, Jesse, what are you seeing show up in comments?
Yeah. Okay. So 5 minutes feels like a very long time when you're at your desk. Someone said, I'm kind of tired now. Felt like longer than 5 minutes. Another person said it went by very quick. It does feel like a long time. So we're kind of getting like half and half on this. I yawned afterwards. Felt like my body was very heavy. Peaceful, love listening to the birds chirp. And so my question is, I wonder how often that person hears those birds chirp when they're not doing this, right? It felt long, but was able to do better than last time. This week's been a stressful one. Couldn't get my brain to stop. Nice break. Relaxing, almost made them sleepy. Breathing was easier and longer. The longer they meditated, so it got a little bit easier. Someone said they snoozed, so they did fall asleep, even sitting up without laying down. Peaceful, relaxing, seemed like a long time. Could have fallen asleep. So I'll let you take it from there. That's kind of the last one that came in.
That's wonderful. When I started practicing meditation, I would go on these little longer retreats, and I'd go to my meditation instructor. I said, I can't do this. I said, the second I sit down on a meditation cushion, I swear my butt and my eyelids are attached. And the second I sat down, I was sound asleep. I was just out instantly. And this went on for a while. And I finally said, what's going on? He said, Dave, your mind has been going so hard and so fast for so long. I just created an opportunity for you to relax, and you're tired. You're literally, it's exhausting to do this sort of thinking and powering it out all the time and not have any clue that I was doing it. And so it is a phase that a lot of us will go through in our practice. And it's not to be worried about. Just do the best you can and come back. And one more time, interrupt yourself and come back to the present moment. And you can see at this point probably why kindness makes a huge difference. Because if you start saying, oh, I suck at meditation, I can't keep my mind, that is not going to be helpful. That doesn't help. When you notice you're thinking and you come back, you should almost have a party every time. And if in 5 minutes you manage to come back once, you should have a celebration about that. This is learning how to sit there and make friends with our minds. And the way we do that, if we're too tight, if I'm whacking myself like that every time I realize I'm thinking and I've got to just muscle my mind back to the meditation cushion, too tight. On the other hand, if I just let my mind go wandering around and space out, well, that's too loose. So if somehow we're coming up to the sweet spot of coming back to this thing called the present moment, that's always fresh, it's always new. And that's what we're actually learning how to do. We're actually learning how to interrupt ourselves. And so, yes, the sleepiness is very definitely length of time, which is an interesting thing. I would go on these longer retreats, a month long, and we start meditating at 7 in the morning and end at 10 at night. And it took me years and years and years for me to develop enough skills to even look at that. And my mind would be going crazy I just wanted someone to ring the gong so I could get away from myself. I wanted to get out. And then we'd go back again. And every experience that you can have on the meditation cushion is 100% okay. You might actually have a sensation suddenly of just relaxing and feeling like you can be there for 1,000 years. You just, and this. And then the next time you meditate, you might be all over the board. That's the nature of what we're trying to discover about ourselves. There's nothing that comes up that is not acceptable in our practice. What was I going to say about, I'm going to say what you think about doesn't matter. Just notice your thinking. And sometimes it's helpful to actually say, oh, thinking, label your thoughts, and then come back that way. That has been helpful. That was helpful to me for a while, just to notice what I was up to. I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to sit there and close of this story. Some people, well, myself included, said, well, if 5 minutes is good, then 20 minutes would be good. And then maybe I'll sit for an hour on the weekends and just build up. It's much, much better to do exactly what you're doing right now. Take 5 minutes, just take 5 minutes out of your day and go someplace and take a break from your activity of your mind. Be very happy that you have a mind that can think and do these jobs that you do, but at the same time, give it a break once in a while and just come back and be nice to yourself. And the story I've always talked about or pictured in my mind, you remember those merry-go-rounds that were on every playground that had the bars and they spun around? And you remember that the older kids would get it spinning really fast, and that there was always some young kid that was in the middle of the thing and he's just holding on for dear life, and then gets flung off the merry-go-round and has a cast all summer because he does. And I'm sure glad that Adams County probably has taken all those merry-go-rounds out. But when you saw the kid was in distress and the older kids would say, oh, we got to slow this thing down so we can get off. How would you slow a merry-go-round down? It's spinning really fast. It's got a lot of weight on it. So if you grab the bar, the outside bar, it's going to rip your arm out. You're just going to fly across. So basically, the best way to slow a merry-go-round down is you just tap those bars as it's going around. And bit by bit by bit, the momentum slows down. When we come back, when we notice we're thinking and we come back, that is basically a tap. And bit by bit by bit, very slowly, we slow down the momentum of what's been going on in our mind. And this practice, the practice of meditation is vast. There are so many different techniques, but the reason I'm introducing this one to you is that it kind of creates a base level of knowing what our mind is up to all the time. Then there'll be other ones that we can do that are contemplations, where you'll actually place your mind on a story that's being told or something. But right now, we're just sitting there working with what's happening. So I promised this time, I promised Jesse that I would end this puppy right at 12:30, but we can certainly answer any questions I have. So if you have to go to your jobs and this and that, that's good. But I also want to leave time to, if someone wants to say something, even unmute yourself and say something. And Jesse, I wanted to make sure if you saw anything on chat that we can talk about here.
It's a quiet question day.
Okay.
So maybe you answered everyone's questions. I'm just seeing a lot of thank yous.
something quick. I just wanted to say that I'm just so excited that I'm not the only one kind of here on this journey, kind of trying to quiet my mind. It's nice to see all
Yes.
these other people and people that I know. And I don't know a lot of people, but some of the ones I know and that I work with, it's like, okay, cool. Like, you know, familiar faces. And there's a lot of people that are interested.
I've often said that this whole journey of meditation has been one of finding out I'm a complete whack job, but I really have started to love the whack job. You know, you just develop such a sense of appreciation for the opportunity to work. And the other thing that metaphor I've used is that I found out that I have a doctorate from MSUU. And someone asked me, what's MSUU? And that's Make Shit Up University. My mind is so busy. It makes stuff up like you can't believe. I have entire wings of my MSUU dedicated to my body, let's say. If I get a headache in 5 minutes, I can tell you the approximate size of the tumor and how long I have to live. It's just absolutely wonderful having a mind sometimes. So it's a great adventure. So Pete, you're absolutely right. Everybody, the enrollment of MSUU is 3.8 billion, but you know, you don't notice anybody because we're running around in our own minds. And I had one of my meditation students call me the other day and said that, hey, I got a trophy case at my school. And it's a lot of fun to be had on this. Any other comments? And you're right, Pete, if we do this together, it is so much easier than just always trying to go solo. So always arrange places to get together like this. Anybody else have their hand up or have anything to say? And was this helpful? That would be the biggest question. Is what we're doing in a quick 30-minute shot helpful to you? Okay. Then one of my, go ahead.
I'm getting a lot of yeses in the chat.
Okay. Well, one of the favorite things I can do on Zoom is I can just out of the blue ask Michelle to unmute and tell us what's up with you. Tell us how you're doing.
Now, last week there was another Michelle, and I almost answered, and I realized somebody else was talking. You know, it's been kind of a crazy spring with a lot of different things going on, and it's also, you know, kind of stressful thinking about trying to readjust life and go back into the office because I've been 100% remote. So this month has been really helpful in terms of working through some of that stuff and taking some quiet time as well. So I really appreciate this challenge.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been telling people we've been on a year-long retreat where we've been at home and our masks and this and that. And so we've had to hang out with ourselves a lot. And it was both a tremendous opportunity, but it was also very difficult. But I'm like you, Michelle, going to a restaurant the other day and seeing people with all of the faces and not just, I felt myself getting nervous. I said, how am I going to work with this? And this is where the practice is. So just take a couple deep breaths, whistle floppy back, you know, have a little friendliness, and then go into whatever is working. Anybody else have anything? I'll give you a preview of coming attractions. We're going to do mindfulness of feelings. And we're also, you know, when we have a feeling, how quickly we get hooked. It's called Shenpa in Tibetan, where suddenly we have a feeling and our minds are hooked and we're just off to the races. And so we're just going to touch real briefly on that. But again, it's the base of knowing what you're up to, and we can't work with that until we know that we're taking off on ourselves. But the only way we can learn how to come back is be friendly, to have some compassion for yourself. And so appreciate your comment about there's 32 people here that all have a mind that's all bolting on them, and we can work with it. We can actually hang out. That's for the practice together is very important. So, you know, if you even have some people that you can work with, that would be helpful too. We'll talk about that. So next week, I will be doing mindfulness of feelings, and we'll see where that takes us. So thank you, everybody. This is, you know, there's lots of smiles on these faces, so I really was looking forward to seeing all of you again. And thank you for your kind attention.
All right, everybody, until next week, we will meet again. Have a great rest of your day.